Hey guys, it's Sean. How are you? How's it going? In many countries, including here in South Korea, people are taught to respond to "How are you?" with "I'm fine, thank you, and you?" But how do native English speakers really respond to the questions "How are you?" and "How's it going?" In this video, we're going to explore this very topic. I'm excited to introduce yet another new host for the channel, Sam, who is currently living in the US and is going to be helping me out with this video. Without further ado, let's begin. Take it away, Sam.
Thanks, Sean. Sam from the US here, and today we're going to be seeing how Americans respond to "How's it going?" So, let's go! Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Enjoying classes, nice weather, like hanging out with my friends. As good as it can be.
Yeah, it's a really good day. Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm about to graduate, so I'm really happy about that.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how about you?
Good, good. Hey, how's it going?
Doing good, how are you doing?
Good. Just enjoying the weather, walking around.
Yeah, just out hanging out.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, how's it going? Good. Hello. Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going good.
Going good.
Going great.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How are
What's
you?
out? Oh, not much. Just hanging out. Going on a beautiful walk today.
It's a nice pretty day. Good for that.
So hey, how's it going?
I'm good.
How have you been today?
I'm very good. Been working.
Oh, working on the yard?
Yard, lining soccer fields, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, all the fun stuff.
Yes.
Well,
Hi, how's it going?
I'm going good. How are you doing?
Good. Enjoying the weather.
I sure am. Beautiful day out on a nice walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody were to ask you and you were having a bad day, how would you respond to that?
Probably a little less excited. I mean, probably close to the same thing. Still going good though. But
I usually just say I'm good and keep it pushing.
Yeah, I understand that. I do the same.
I'd probably just say, it's going and ask them how they're doing.
I would say it's going good, how are you?
I probably wouldn't be very detailed. I'd just say something like, "Oh, I'm fine, how about you?"
Yeah, I probably would too. And as far as like your best friend saying it to you when you're having a bad day, how would you respond to that?
I'd definitely tell them what was going on, tell them all about my day, not say I was fine. Definitely go into detail and be open with them.
probably tell them the truth, honestly. I mean, they're there for you, so might as well use them for that.
I might actually tell them like the whole situation, like why I'm having a bad day.
Not great. Could be better.
Yeah.
I would definitely be a little bit more open about it and honest and ask if they want to talk about it.
I would be a lot more open with them because I'm comfortable with them, and I would be much more open about my emotions and how I'm feeling.
Probably, I would be even happier just because I'm now talking to my best friend, but I mean, I'd probably just be like, tell her the honest truth, or him, I guess, but yeah.
So that's all I have for today. Back to you, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. What are your plans for today?
Today, gonna meet some friends at a cafe, do a little co-working, go for lunch.
If you're not doing so well, how would you respond to "How are you?"
I'll still probably say I'm all right, or I've been busy, or depends how close they are. You know,
Okay.
if they're far away, I don't want you into my life.
Okay,
You
so
know?
if they're a stranger or acquaintance, you
Yeah.
wouldn't give them all that information.
No.
It becomes more of like a meaningless greeting. How are
Yeah.
you? Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I don't want to put that burden on somebody who's not close with me. It's like, oh, I'm really having a tough time these days. What are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
They don't know who I'm. Like, they don't need that in their life. It's not considerate.
So the generic response would be, "I'm good," right?
Yeah, right. But if you are with a closer friend and you want them to know, it just depends how you say it. And if someone who's close to me says, "How are you doing?" I'm like, I'm all right. If I say it like that, then they'll ask me what's going on.
Good info. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing awesome, man. How about you?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, life's good. Chilling out here in a cafe. Getting my friends. Yeah.
Getting some work done?
Yeah, getting a lot of work done.
Good. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, peace.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm a bit tired, but I'm okay. Thank you.
Good? Okay. All right. How are you guys doing today?
Really good.
Really good?
Yeah, really good.
Why is that?
It was a slow Monday after a cool weekend.
A slow Monday?
Nice.
I see.
Yeah.
I see no classes. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty well.
I'm good, thank you.
How are you guys doing today?
Very good. Good, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, I'm doing great. And where are you from
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Once again, I'm Sean. See you in the next video. Bye. 열심히 영어 공부를 하시는 분이라면 Serious Learners 멤버십에 가입해보세요. 여러 가지 레벨이 있는데 멤버십 혜택 중에는 한영 대본, 한영을 자유롭게 설정할 수 있는 영상, 그리고 영어 발음을 위한 쉐도잉 시리즈도 있습니다. 관심 있으시면 아래 설명 참고해주세요. Good! Hi guys, how's it going? It's Sean. I'm really excited to officially introduce one of the new hosts of the channel. He's a young, upbeat, energetic guy from the US, and he also happens to speak Korean really well. His name also happens to be Sean, which I can imagine can be a bit confusing for you guys. But anyway, he's going to be helping me out from time to time with the channel, particularly with street interviews. Without further ado, let's begin. Take it away, Sean.
Hi, my name is Sean, and I'm out here today in the streets of Hongdae interviewing foreigners on their experience learning Korean. On the list of the hardest languages to learn for native English-speaking countries, Korean is in the top 4. Let's hit the streets of Hongdae and find out why it's so hard for foreigners to learn Korean. 가보시죠. What's your name?
My name is Aren.
And where are you from?
I'm from the US.
US. And how long have you lived in Korea?
I've lived in Korea 3 years.
3 years. Wow, guys. As someone who's attended Sogang University for 1 semester already, what's some of the difficulties you've experienced while learning Korean?
So when you're like in language school, you use really basic Korean. Like you use everyday stuff you can use, but once you get into university, you have to use Korean that's like, when am I going to use that in daily life ever?
Exactly.
So it starts becoming a little bit harder to get past that. But if you have really good people that are around you who are willing to help, then it makes it a lot easier.
I see.
Yeah, so making Korean friends and having those connections makes all the difference.
Oh yeah, of course. How about like specifically grammatically or like something that you really had a hard time in the beginning with?
Grammar. Like I hate grammar so much.
뭐 예를 들어 가지고 존댓말.
존댓말 진짜 어려워요. 아직도 해결해요.
How about anything else like
So you're a foreigner in Korea. You stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's getting used to those cultural differences of like especially older generations just staring.
Yeah.
So you're like, hi. It's a little bit better with masks now because people don't notice as much.
They can't. Even if you have if you got the clothes right, then you just think you're Korean, and then
yeah. So they don't look too close. You're like, I can almost pass for not looking too foreigner.
I see. But so when you're talking with your friends in Korean, do you have a lot of Korean friends here?
I have more Korean friends in Busan than I do here.
Did you speak Korean with them, mostly, or English?
Mostly Korean.
Mostly Korean.
Yeah.
I see.
Usually with people older than me, like I can remember, but like friends or like people a little bit older, I'm like, oh, I just realized I'm talking to somebody that's like 6 years older than I am, but I'm speaking 반말.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, it's like because you're 반말로 얘기했더니 when you speak in 반말, it's so you feel like
it's very comfortable.
You're very comfortable, and then but when you're not speaking comfortable, you can't speak good. So like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. You just become kind of like awkward. You're like, wait, which one am I using? Let me switch, and then it becomes broken Korean. There's really not much that I've had too many troubles with, especially after I made a lot of Korean friends. Before that, just like it's very difficult to be by yourself in Korea.
Yeah.
So if you make some kind of friends, you'll have a lot easier time. I actually just moved into a one room. It was insane, the process.
Yeah.
And I still have a headache from it, but
me too.
It's been good.
That's great.
Yeah.
So far in general, you had a good time here learning the language and stuff.
Yeah. I've had a few like bumps in the road where it's like you know, wherever you go, there's always kind of like not so cool people that you meet, no matter where you go. But for the majority, it's been really good.
What's your name?
Max.
And where are you from again?
London, England.
And so you said you've lived here in Korea for how long?
Almost 3 years now.
3 years, wow. So you have some experience learning the Korean language, right? Even a little bit. So there's a list out there, and I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's the hardest languages to learn for native English speakers, and Korean is in the top 4.
Oh wow, okay.
Why would you think that is, based on your experience learning Korean?
Probably the different alphabet for one, and yeah, there's like formal, informal, and stuff like that, which we don't really do that in English. So
that's true.
And it's very contextual Korean language, so it depends on the situation you're in and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes if I speak to a stranger in the street, like an old man at the convenience store, I accidentally say like "괜찮아" instead of "괜찮아요." So like I make mistakes both ways. Yeah.
I see.
I forget about the situation I'm in sometimes.
That's hard for foreigners. It's hard for me too.
Yeah. I think English seems harder.
Really?
Yeah.
For Koreans?
I feel like Korean is pretty mathematical, kind of the way you learn it, whereas English is just, when I'm teaching it to students, there's so many things which I can't really explain to them. It's like, it's just, that's the way it is.
As a native speaker.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but in Korea, usually you can explain every rule easily enough, I think. Yeah.
That's true. You like your time here in Korea so far? Was it great?
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, I can't leave. I can't seem to leave right now. Yeah.
Oh, fall in love with Korea.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Thank you for your time, man. I love what you said. Yeah. Korean. What's your name?
Marie.
And where are you from?
California.
California. Where in California?
San Diego.
So how long have you lived in Korea before?
Total 3.5 years.
3.5 years. So you have a lot of experience learning Korean, I'm assuming.
Maybe.
Oh, so you took Korean classes?
I took Korean classes when I was studying abroad.
I see.
Maybe intonation and memorizing the characters. Like if you're not used to learning characters.
The characters, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part.
Can you read Korean?
Yeah.
Of course.
Like speaking formally and informally, I think that's probably pretty hard.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I learned Japanese first.
But Japanese has the same thing.
Yeah. But it was easier for me to learn like Japanese and Korean than like Latin-based languages.
I see. So you like your time here in Korea so far? You here for vacation?
Vacation? No, I live here.
You live here now?
I live in Cheonan.
As an English teacher? Mm-hmm. That was great. Thank you for your time. Korean. What's your name? Roshi. And where are you from?
Iran. No, I think Chinese and Japanese are definitely more difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Because like I was just interested in like Eastern Asia, so I do research before I come to Korea, and I take a look in all these languages, and I realized, oh my God, okay, if I want to learn in my country, it will be like for Japanese is 19 semesters.
19. Oh.
Yeah, and Chinese will be 16 semesters.
Oh my God.
While Korean was just 7 semesters.
7. Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, Korean is not that difficult.
I see. Yeah. As a person who has learned Korean here in Korea, what are some of the difficulties that you've experienced while trying to learn Korean?
Maybe everybody think that it's a good idea that the teacher from the beginning they're speaking Korean, so you will learn Korean better. But no, that's a bad idea. Like for 2 semesters, like first semester and second semester, it's really hard. Like you barely could understand like what your teacher is talking about, and they don't use English. I had headache almost every day because like she kept talking and she's like she's trying so hard, and we're just looking like, no, we couldn't understand what you're talking about. You know, for like grammar, special grammar, or some like words, like we use translation, and she should take a look, and she's like, no, this translation is wrong. So I'm like, okay, what is the meaning? And she tried to tell me in Korean, so I'm not understanding. Yeah, that wasn't easy at first.
I didn't know that they taught you in Korean. I thought that they would teach you English.
All in Korean. From the first level, from Hangul to the 6th level, is all in Korean.
All in Korean. Wow.
Yeah, it's not easy. almost everything is quite different than my language, like informal and formal. It was really like surprising, like oh my god, like the way you write and the way you speak, the way they speak in the news, everything was all different levels. That was like we have just two different levels, not like that in Persian. I still like it, even though it's difficult. I still like it. Yeah.
You got a lot of Korean friends?
Not a lot, a few.
A few?
Yeah, like 3 or 4. Yeah.
So you try and speak Korean with them sometimes?
Yeah, they try to push me. In my opinion, Korean language, like speaking, is sweet, kind of sweet feeling to me. Yeah, I like it.
I love what you said, and thank you for your time.
So my name is Amanda. Nice to meet you.
And where are you from?
So I'm from France, as you can tell with my accent.
Oh, France. And so how long have you been studying here at Sogang University?
At Sogang University, I started last fall semester.
Last fall semester?
Yes.
Oh, so you've been here for like, how long so far?
In Korea for 3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
3 years. Wow, amazing. Personally, what difficulties have you experienced while learning Korean?
As for me, it was learning the vocabulary, because when I was learning English, since like all the hard words are related to Latin, it was easy for me to learn them, right?
Yeah.
But in Korean, I don't have this connection. So like,
exactly.
I just need to like learn everything from scratch. So yeah, because you know, like French is more similar to English, right? So like if you think about French, although the grammar is very hard compared to the English one, like the grammatic syntax is the same. So like you can think similarly as English, so
You're
very hard.
entirely opposite, you know?
Yeah, like they just like switch all the grammar syntaxes, like you have the verb at the end of a sentence, which literally means that you need to learn to hear like the whole sentence before you're able to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. How about, there's a lot of other stuff that Korean has that a lot of the other languages in the world don't have. For example, like 존댓말.
Oh yeah.
How was that? How was learning that?
Oh, but actually in France we also do have like this politeness,
Really?
so that's fine. The only problem is that like they don't have only 존댓말, they also have like 높임말. So like there are like different degrees of politeness, and that's the hardest. The different degrees of politeness. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of Korean friends here in Sogang or in Korea in general?
Not in Sogang, but in Korea, yes. Because like when I came here in Korea, I knew a lot of foreigners, but then they all go back to their countries, right?
Oh, I see.
So then you're left with nothing but your Korean friends.
Oh, that's good. That's good because you get a chance to experience the language.
Yeah, true. And the culture also, it's very nice.
So, when you speak with them, what's one of the most embarrassing like mistakes you made? Like oh, you shouldn't say that, or like oh, you can't say that in Korea. Or is any mistakes that you think? Embarrassing mistakes.
There was one actually, because I have a boyfriend here in Korea. So when I met his parents, I don't remember what I said. I said 싸가지 없어. So like they have no manner. But that's like kind of like the jargon way of saying like they have no manner. So or usually you have to say like 예의가 없어 or something like that. But I say 싸가지 없어. So like they started laughing and they were like, oh, you shouldn't say that in front of us.
Yeah.
So I was like, oops.
Yeah, slang.
Yeah, correct. So if you're learning the Korean language, it's hard, but don't give up. Yeah.
Very hard. Yeah.
It's becoming interesting afterwards. At first it's hard, but then it's very nice.
I see. All right, thank you. I love what you said. Thank you for coming out here today and giving your time for an interview. Yeah.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Sean. In this video, you're going to get the opportunity to listen to various self-introductions from Americans all across the United States. Throughout the video, I'll give you small quizzes, so make sure to pay attention while listening. So with that, let me begin with myself. Hi, I'm Sean. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the United States. I've been living in South Korea for around 7 years now. I work as a full-time YouTuber here in South Korea, but I do various other jobs as well. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my entire family is currently living on the East Coast of the United States. I love hiking, nature, working out, biking. My goals for this year are to continue to grow this YouTube channel, get my driver's license, and find some people to play music with on a regular basis. So that's my self-introduction. Now I will show you guys various self-introductions from other Americans so you can test your English listening. But after watching the video, make sure to practice your own self-introductions in English. Without further ado, let's begin.
Hi, my name's Amelia Gonzalez. I'm from Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, and I currently live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I am working at SNS Cafeteria in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I do plan on leaving soon. For my future, I am planning on living elsewhere.
Hi, my name is Dylan. I live here in Knoxville, Tennessee, born and raised. I work at UPS, United Postal Service. We move boxes. That's really all I gotta say about that. I like to play video games. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to do a lot of nerdy stuff. It's a great time. That's really all I got to say. I don't really know what else to do.
Where is Amelia from? What are Dylan's hobbies?
Hi, I'm Jordan. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I like to play with my friends, play music. I work at UPS. I don't do a whole lot else.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm a bartender. I like to go kayaking and be outside. I am married. We've been married 7 months. I am a bartender and I am 25 years old.
And I'm 29 years old. We like to go kayaking and I like to play music with my friends.
And in the future, we would like to buy a camper and travel the whole country.
Yeah, just bounce around the world, living life. That'd be great. Maybe have a little kid or two.
Yep.
How long have they been married? What are their goals for the future?
Hi, I'm Brad. I live in Clinton, grew up in Clinton, Tennessee. I like to hang out with my friends. Almost 30 years old. I turned 30 in November. I like to play music, go kayaking, snowboarding, play basketball. I like to be outside. In the future, I'd like to travel.
Hi, my name is Jenny Bell. I'm originally from Tennessee, from Knoxville. I am a mom of 6 children total. 2 are my husband's, 2 were mine from previous marriages, and then we had a set of twins together. I'm a hairdresser. I work from home so I can help with my children. My husband's also a pastor of a church, so we do that kind of full-time as well, run our own business. He runs a fence installation company, so basically our goals are just to give our kids a happy, healthy life, keep them alive, and, you know,
Perfect.
That's about it.
When does Brad turn 30? What jobs do Jenny and her husband work?
Hey guys, my name is Sean. I'm 21 years old and I'm from the United States in California. Currently I'm living in Korea and working here with Sean on YouTube, creating new contents, and I'm working in an English hagwon as well on the side, an English academy. Also, I am attending Sogang University. Yeah, I transferred here last year, and I'm attending school and working at the same time. My family, my brother, sister, my mom and my dad, they live in California right now, and I am the youngest in my family. Things I love to do. Well, I'm a fencing athlete, actually. I was fencing in the United States for a while, and I tried to shoot for the national team there, so it didn't work out, so I'm just taking a break and attending school first. Also, yeah, I love to play guitar. That's one of my other hobbies. Other than that, I love to work with Sean and YouTube, get involved in the creative process and try and create new contents for you guys. And in the near future, I hope I can adjust better here in Korea, get some more friends, after Corona ends. Maybe in the near future, maybe American national team in fencing, if I can graduate fast enough. Well, that's all I gotta say. That was my self-introduction. Thank you guys.
Hi guys, my name is Samantha Turner. I go by Sam or Sammy, and I'm the US host for the channel. I'm 28 years old. I go to the University of Tennessee. I'll be graduating in December with my bachelor's in mathematics. My hobbies include gaming. I game a lot. I also love sports. I played soccer for 18 years and I've been snowboarding for 12. In my free time, I like to hang out with my friends. I learn Korean with my 2 friends that I love so much. In the future, I hope to improve my Korean so that I can be an English teacher or a translator for the esports teams that come to the US from Korea. And yeah.
What are Sean's goals for the future? Why does Sam want to learn Korean? Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Once again, I'm Sean. See you in the next video. Bye.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Sean from the US. So in this video, I want to take you guys with me to one of my favorite restaurants here in Yeonnam-dong, Seoul. And I have my lovely girlfriend as my camera woman for today. And I also want to take you to a cafe that I really like. And along the way, I want to talk about some interesting topics with you guys, including how I met my girlfriend, what we can learn about Korean culture by looking at the Korean language, and lessons that America can learn from Korea and lessons that Korea can learn from America. So come and hang out with me and let's get started as I show you one of my favorite restaurants. Let's go. So we're here at this restaurant called Shio. It's kind of like a Japanese Korean fusion restaurant, and it's easily one of my favorite restaurants here in the Hongdae Yeonnam-dong area. Me and my girlfriend, we both ordered the samsek yakitori, which is like this chicken with rice and eggs with so many beautiful Korean banchan side dishes. It's seriously delicious. So a topic I want to talk to you guys about right now while we're waiting for the food is how I met my girlfriend. It was actually a pretty interesting story. I guess maybe a year ago I was using like online dating apps and language exchange apps. I was pretty busy with YouTube and kind of looking to meet somebody, you know. I guess something more serious as well. So I wrote on my profile, if you recognize me from YouTube, please don't say anything. The reason is I don't want that to be like the first topic that people talk with me about. I kind of just want them to talk about themselves and me, like what do you like to do? What are you doing these days, you know? When people find out that I'm a full-time YouTuber, they really latch onto that topic and it can be kind of burdensome to me at first. So anyway, my girlfriend read this in my profile and we just started talking on the app, and it went really well, and eventually I asked her if she wanted to get a coffee or like a dinner, and we met, and then I told her, oh, by the way, I'm a YouTuber, and she said, I know. And I was like, you know, but you didn't say anything. She was like, yeah, because you said not to say anything. And to me, this was just like amazing. A, she could follow directions. B, she understood like it was burdensome, so she didn't bring it up. And yeah, we ended up having really good conversation. We ended up hanging out till like 5 in the morning, just having a drink, having dinner, just going from one place to another. We met again and we ended up hanging out again till like 5 in the morning. So I was like, wow, I think we have a really good chemistry. So yeah, we've just been meeting ever since, and I guess we've been going out for like 10 months now. Time flies. Yes. She's really smart. She has a lot of life experience. We get along and we like to do a lot of things together, like hiking, like watching movies, like playing games, talking about weird, deep, interesting topics, or even just simple topics. It's really fun to travel with her, so yeah, that's how we met. Me and Yujong is her name. Anyway, let's get some food now. I think it's coming out soon. So the food is out now. We've got this amazing chicken with the eggs. All these beautiful banchan, wow. Beautiful side dishes. Wow. Let's try some, okay? Okay. Ready? Mukbang. Wow, you have a little bit of everything. One piece of everything. All right, ready? How is it? Good? 10 out of 10? Good job. 9. All right, that's still pretty good. All right, here we go. My turn. I'm gonna try some of this chicken with the. I want to get one piece of everything. So a little bit of chicken, some rice, some of the egg, and a little bit of this bok choy. So one thing about me, guys, is that I'm a really fast eater. And when I'm with Yujong, I have to eat a lot slower. This is actually a good thing, I think, because I don't think it's good to just devour your food like a wolf. You should chew it and enjoy it. And it's actually better for your body too, for your digestion. But anyway, one of the things I love when we go out to eat is that it's almost as if I'm eating 1.5 servings, because usually I eat mine and then I finish what she can't finish. It's one of my favorite things. So because of this, I'm actually often concerned and I have a vested interest in what she orders. Excuse me, miss, can I help you with this? All right, I can help you. Maybe I can do you a good service here and finish this chicken. Never leave a good chicken behind. You must always finish the chicken. I think I cleaned these plates out pretty well, eh? Okay, as you guys can see, we are finished. We ate a lot here. It was delicious. Now I want to take you to one of my favorite cafes here in Yeonnam-dong. It's a Vietnamese cafe run by a friend of mine. I think you guys are going to enjoy the interior a lot. Let's go. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Oh, the interior is really fantastic. You can tell that the owner here has put a lot of love and care into the overall atmosphere and feeling of the restaurant. Apparently, he's lived in Vietnam for many, many years. He speaks Vietnamese, Korean, and some English. Of course, this is the man that I'm talking about. He and I are the same age. Oh, he's got a little bit of coffee on his shirt. You can tell that he's a hard worker. That's okay though. Okay. So we're here. I think Yujong is going to get the avocado smoothie. Oh dear. And I'm going to get the egg coffee. I haven't tried that one yet, but it sounds really good. I usually get the coconut coffee. Let's have a seat then. So a question I want to answer now is, what can you glean from Korean culture based off the language, Korean? I think there are many things. As someone who's been studying Korean for about 5.5 years, the first thing that pops into my mind is this idea of nunchi, or social sense. If you see Koreans at a table at a meeting or two people talking, they're very in tune. This idea of being socially aware, or nunchi, is very important. You can see this paralleled in the language, where you can say 밥 먹었어? In English you have to say did you eat? You. But in Korean it's just 밥 먹었어? Which, when directly translated into Korean, is food was eaten. So in Korean you can take out the you because the listener knows that you're talking about them. So this connectedness is very important within the culture and the language. Another thing going along with this theme is the idea of collectivism. 우리나라, 우리 학교, 우리 회사, 우리 엄마, our mother, our company, our country. It's not my country like it is in English. It's not my company, not my mother. This idea of a shared Korea is reflected in the language and the attitude and culture. So things like 정, like working together, 단일 민족, or like a united Korea, is a very strong component within Korean culture. Of course, there's a lot of positives to this along with negatives, but the point is that this is reflected in both the culture and the language. The last thing is just like the pronunciation, and this is just my personal opinion. Korean has a very sharp and rhythmic pronunciation. So you have to get the pronunciation correct in order for others to understand you. And I think Korean attitude and Korean culture is like this. Things are fast, they have to be done on time, business is important, working hours are long, we get the job done, and we all work together diligently and selflessly in order for Korea to become a better country. So these are just some of my thoughts in terms of parallels between the language and the culture. Cool. Wow, that's a beautiful color. Look at that. It's like light green and creamy. The avocado smoothie. Beautiful. All right. Taste test. Yeah. That's hard to drink, right? Not easy to drink. How is it? 1 through 10.
10. That's a pretty high score. Wow, that consistency is fantastic. Nice. Look at that guy. The egg coffee. I'm so curious as to how this tastes. But the face is very cute. Alright, here we go. Egg coffee taste test. That's really nice. Wow, the coffee and the egg really goes together well. Little cinnamon on top. Fantastic. Nothing short of my expectations for this place. Anyway, let's have these drinks and then check out the park across the way. All right. Okay, so another question that I'm going to answer now is, did you think you were going to be in Korea this long? The answer is no. When I was living in the US, I was actually in a band. I was the keyboard player and the singer, and originally I was only just going to live in Korea for 1 year and then go back to the US and continue playing music and creating music within the band. I guess we all know how it turned out. I've been living here for 6 years now, doing YouTube. I still have a guitar and I make music, but wow, I never imagined things would actually turn out this way. But I'm very grateful, and overall I love my life in Korea. So yeah, cool. Okay, we're all finished with the drinks here. We're gonna take a walk in the park now. Let's go. Hey guys, we're here in the park now again, and I want to answer now the question, what are some things that Korea can learn from America, and what are some things that America can learn from Korea? So let's start with something that America can learn from Korea, and that is pride in our country. I love the fact that Koreans are proud to be a Korean, they're proud to wave the Korean flag, and although, you know, every country has its good things and its bad things about its history, Koreans are not afraid to tell everyone that they're Korean. You can see the culture is strong, they hold on to their culture, it's a very important part of their identity. And I think there are a lot of positives to this. When I see a lot of young Americans these days, I often hear, I'm ashamed to be American, or they're ashamed to show the American flag. Like, of course there's bad things about American history, but there's also a lot of good things too. And I think it's okay to be proud of your country, you know? I think a lot of Americans can kind of band together with their patriotism. It doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're American, that's one thing we all have in common in America. So I think that's one thing that America can really learn from Korea, being proud of your country. And I'm not speaking for all of Americans. I know some Americans are very proud of their country and not afraid to show the American flag, but I find that a lot of people from my hometown have this attitude of being ashamed of America, and like I said, it's just sad to see. Now, for one thing that I think that Korea can learn from America is the idea of free communication in companies. So if a young person in an American company has a really good creative idea, they can usually feel free to talk to their superior or their boss about this idea, and if the idea is good, they often implement it. Whereas in Korea, I often hear from my Korean friends that there's a much more rigid structure, and it's hard to get ideas and new systems from the lower end to the higher end. It's really sad to see, because I think a lot of companies can benefit from this type of free communication. Going along with this idea, I think still in Korea, a lot of people assume or think that the ultimate job, the best job you can get, is to work for Samsung or LG or Lotte, one of these big companies, where I think in America, like, the idea of starting a small company is so normal in the culture. There's fundraising, there's so many ways to get support from the government. In Korea, it's becoming more popular to do this, but I still think like the idea of creating your own work is not as popular among younger people in Korea as it is in the US. So if you can't find a job, make your own job. What are some ways that you can satisfy needs in the marketplace? This is the way that I think younger Koreans should be thinking more, and I do see it more and more nowadays, but it can go even further, and I think Korea in general will benefit a lot from this mindset.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts. What do you think? Alright guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of an experiment making this, showing you guys my favorite places and talking to you along the way. If you like this, leave a comment and maybe I'll do some more in the future. As always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Ailey. I'm from Turkey and today I will be talking about 5 mistakes Koreans make when speaking English. Now, as an English learner myself, I used to make similar mistakes, but thankfully in time I learned how to correctly express myself and I even scored 112 on TOEFL exam. So I thought this type of a video would really help you guys out, especially if you don't have anyone to regularly practice English with. So yeah, without further ado, let's start with our first mistake. So what did you do all week?
You know, I was at the company.
The company? Which company?
The one that I work at.
Oh, so you were at work?
Yes, I just told you.
Oh. So the mistake here and the reason why I was confused is because in her head, Yuri is thinking, 뭐 그냥 회사를 다녔어. But she's trying to exactly translate her words. And in Korean, of course, we do say 회사, but in English, we do not say company when we're referring to the place that we're working in. We just simply say, well, I was just at work, you know, I was just working. So when she said I was at the company, I immediately thought, wow, was there a specific company that we were talking about? Was there a company in this context? So that's why I was confused, and that's why you should say I was working or I was at work instead of I was at the company. So what else did you do?
So, I met a guy.
You met a guy? How is he?
You know.
I know?
Yeah, my boyfriend.
Oh, you met the guy. Your boyfriend.
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So the second mistake is actually something a lot of English learners are confused with, and it is the use of the definite article, which is the. And since we don't have something similar in Korean, it might be confusing to know where and when to use this word. So in our example, Yuri was saying, I met a guy, which made me think she met someone else. She met a random guy when she was trying to refer to her boyfriend, which is the guy. There is only one of him. There is only one boyfriend. Also, for this example, I wanted to clarify that I met the guy does not actually mean I met my boyfriend in English. It was just the case for our example. So if Yuri actually wanted to say I met my boyfriend, she should have just said I met my boyfriend. But our example was just to show the difference between a and the. And in the case of definite article, there are some words that you should always use with the, like the weather, the sun, the earth, because there is always one of those things. You know, there are not 2 suns, not 2 earths, etc.
So, I went to a party last week, but I was so boring.
You were boring? But you're a really fun person.
I know, but I was so boring.
But no, you're really fun.
I know, I'm so boring.
Okay.
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 So this one is something I've been actually hearing a lot, and it is using the participle adjectives in the wrong way. And without getting too much into the grammar and confusing you guys even more, I think I can simply put it like this. So we have adjectives that end with ed and adjectives that end with ing, right? So the adjectives that end with ed are the ones that are affected by feelings. So for example, Yuri was bored. She was bored. She was the one who was feeling bored. In this case, she is affected, which is why she should have said, I was bored at the party. And then we have adjectives that end with ing, and in this case, these are the ones that are causing those feelings. For example, the party was boring. In this case, I'm referring to the party, and party is causing that feeling. It makes us bored because it is boring.
Do you know BTS?
I know of BTS. I don't know them.
You don't know BTS? No. Everyone knows BTS.
They do?
Yeah, of course.
I must be the only one.
Yeah.
So, do you know something something? Korean people usually use this when they want to ask 뭐뭐 뭔지 아세요? Or 들어봤어요? But in English, we can't always use the verb to know as the translation of 알다. In English, when we say, do you know BTS or do you know Sean? We mean, do you personally know them? Have you ever met them? And for objects like kimchi, I don't think we can ever say, do you know? So in the case of kimchi, we can ask 김치 뭔지 아세요? Or 김치 먹어본 적 있어요? And in these examples, what we should say is, have you ever heard of kimchi? Have you ever tried kimchi? And in our example, Yuri could have asked, have you ever heard of BTS? And I would be like, yes or no. But in this example, Yuri asked me if I knew BTS, which made me think if I ever met BTS, which is why I was confused.
Can you pass me my handphone? I want to check my SNS.
Yeah, sure, but what is SNS?
Like Instagram, Facebook.
Oh, you mean social media?
Yes, right.
So this one is pretty apparent, but it is the use of Konglish. And I have to admit, I've been in Korea for almost like a year now, and these Konglish words started to sound so natural to me, even I sometimes get confused and use those words instead of their actual English translations. And in our example, Yuri said handphone instead of phone, and she said SNS instead of social media. Instead of saying directly like Instagram, Facebook, she said SNS, which might confuse an English speaker. And there are, of course, a lot of examples for this, just like saying 서비스, service for free of charge, saying sign instead of signature, or saying manicure for nail polish. Although they sound pretty similar, they're not the exact translations for these words in English. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Sean. In this video, I'm going to show you my average day here in Seoul, South Korea as an American YouTuber. Without further ado, let's begin. So I usually wake up around 9 a.m., sometimes 10 a.m. if I'm feeling a bit lazier that day. Because I'm essentially self-employed, it can be really difficult to keep myself disciplined. So I always try to make my bed first thing in the morning. That's one success I have in my day. I've completed one task. After that, I pretty much always start my day by taking a walk in the park near my house. I'm very lucky now that the weather's really nice. It's spring, and I live right near the Yeonnam-dong Park. It's pretty awesome. After I get home, I pretty much always do some kind of workout. Today, I did a kettlebell workout. Because I'm not walking to any kind of business or office, I do all my work at home. I have to be really vigilant about exercising because I can easily just spend all day sitting in a chair, editing, or doing other things on my computer. Sometimes I'll go to the gym near my house. This is what it looks like. It's a pretty awesome gym. I definitely look a lot bigger in this shot than I actually am in real life. At this point, I'm pretty hungry. It's around 12 p.m. and I'm gonna make some pasta. Ready? There we go. All right, I made some pasta and I put some chicken in there. It's quite good, so it gives me energy to get my work started. So many days out of the week, I do a lot of video editing. I'm currently working with 2 hosts that are filming videos for me, to which I do all the editing. And you can see here that I'm using Final Cut Pro, which is the reason I'm using a Mac. I think it's a really good program for video editing. I'm also really interested in investing in the stock market and Bitcoin. So part of my day also is spent researching and investing in these different ways. On days when I meet my girlfriend, hi, hey baby. We often go to a cafe during the day so that we can work together. My girlfriend is currently preparing to start her own business, making jewelry and marketing that online. And during days when I come to the cafe, I usually do a lot of organizing, brainstorming, and generally just coming up with ideas to make the channel better and coming up with video ideas for the different hosts and myself to film. So I do all of my video editing at home with my main computer, and when I come to cafes like this, I do pretty much all of my brainstorming. These days, I'm really trying to meditate more because I find that it really helps me out with my creativity, my overall stress level, and just being more focused in general when I'm working or just living my life. So I try to get like 40 minutes in of meditating. Sometimes I miss days, but in general, I would say I do it almost every day. And I gotta say, it is really helpful. 강추. 명상을 통해서 언젠가 만렙 찍겠습니다. At this point, I'm getting pretty hungry. So I think today I'm gonna have some rice with steak. Here we go. I made sort of like a steak over rice with some egg yolks, with a side of kimchi and kim, and it ended up being pretty good. I definitely eat this one a lot. It's easy to make and pretty healthy. On days when I don't cook at home, maybe sometimes I'll go out to a restaurant with my girlfriend. The other day I met a friend. Yo, what up, Doug?
Hey, hola.
Let's get some food, eh? Let's go. And we decided to get some food at a restaurant near his house in Sinchon.
Let's eat.
As you guys can probably tell, I'm a big fan of really simple foods like tteokbap. In this case, we had yukwae, which in English is beef tartare, and it was fantastic. After that, around 8 or 9 p.m., on days when I'm not meeting anybody, I'll usually play a computer game for a few hours before I go to sleep. Look at that big damage. I gotta be careful though to not spend too much time on games like this. Days when I'm with my girl, we usually watch a movie in the evening.
Get up right now, I'll kick you so hard your stomach.
You like movie night? I love movie night! And maybe once or twice a month, I'll meet 2 or 3 friends to play some board games. If you can't tell already, I love games. After that, it's pretty much time to go to bed. And that concludes the average day in my life as a YouTuber here in Korea. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Once again, I'm Sean. Did you like this video? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Where are you guys from again?
I'm from America. I'm from Australia.
And how long have you guys been in Korea so far?
I've been in Korea about 2 years now.
2 years.
Me about 2 months.
What do you think about your boyfriend having friends of the opposite sex?
Personally, I think that is totally, absolutely fine. Okay. I think that, like, you know, your boyfriend or like significant other is a person in and of itself. You need to have trust in your partner, trust, yeah. And you know, if they break that trust, then it wasn't the right person anyway. So yeah, exactly. So
it really depends. For me, I'm absolutely fine with it as long as the communication is there.
What can your partner absolutely not do with the opposite sex?
It's like if it's a one-on-one meeting and it's really late at night and it involves like drinking or something, I'm a little uncomfortable. But I do trust my boyfriend enough to like keep me updated on whatever's going on. I think like in general, like for a partner for me, I think like dancing with someone kind of, you know.
Dancing with someone.
Yeah, that's kind of like a really physical skinship type of touching. Like in America, like usually we hug someone to say hi, or like you might give someone a high five. Like that's perfectly fine. But I think like if it's a little like lingering.
Or
like you get like that kind of like nooking, you know? Yeah, the hand on the back. Yeah. Then I would kind of say, okay, hold on. I'd be like, hey, what's happening?
What's happening?
I go and communicate a little bit and ask some questions.
The one that I think from personal experiences that really affected me when I found out it happened was going to the movies.
Oh,
really?
That's really weird.
Yeah, I think because usually either you go with friends, which is perfectly fine, but if you're going
with just someone of the opposite sex, I think there's something romantic about it. Like I feel like it's a usual date setting.
Two people, one dark room.
Yeah. The one thing that I noticed here is like in Australia we hold hands, or you might like have your arm around, but something here they do this thing where they like grip him, like the guys grip the girl.
Oh my God, you're right. They're like
and
they have it on there.
Very possessive to me, and I don't like it. I see
like,
it.
This is my object.
But I'm probably still just trying to adjust to everything here and seeing it. But I feel like you have more input. How long have you been with your boyfriend?
I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year and a half now. So we're getting close to a year and a half, yeah. He's Korean as well.
Oh, he's Korean?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've kind of found is that Korean couples can be very, I was gonna say possessive. Possessive in like a, not just like grab the shoulder type of way, but like,
who are you talking to?
they talk all the time, which I've gotten used to and I kind of like now, but compared to like American relationships, but they also do a lot of couple things. You make the rings, I have the ring, you know, made the ring, you know, you wear like the couple outfits. Like I was like zooming with my parents and they were like, what's on your finger? And I'm like, Mom, it's okay, I'm fine. Korean couples tend to be possessive, but also outwardly possessive, where they say like, this is my person, and like here's multiple ways to like discern that this is my person. And I also find that a lot of people are very more chivalrous, I guess, to a certain extent. But like I think just in general, like Korean guys are a lot more like, you know, they'll like bring umbrellas if you don't have them. Sometimes they'll be like going up escalators, they'll put like their bag, like if they have like a skirt on, they can like do that, or like they'll protect your head. Like, but,
really?
like they're very like attentive.
Gotta find yourself a Korean guy.
I have a boyfriend in Australia. He doesn't do any of that.
Well, and at first that was kind of like a cultural like problem, because I'm very independent. Like sometimes as Americans you're taught to like do things, you know, you do them, you don't want to kind of look weak or whatever. So it was kind of an adjustment there. They're just trying to take care of you, and it's a show of affection. So those are like the biggest sort of cultural differences that I found.
Where are you from?
I'm from Belgium.
And how long have you been here in Korea so far?
2 years and a half.
If you're dating someone, you know, if you have a girlfriend, is it okay for them to have friends of the opposite sex?
Yeah, I think it's fine, especially if they're mutual friends.
Yeah.
Then I don't see like any issue with it at all. I don't think I would have any problems with it otherwise, unless it's something specifically about that person. But fundamentally, the idea of opposite sex friend is not a problem.
If you have a girlfriend and they're meeting with a friend of the opposite sex, what should they not do together?
Spend more time with them than they would spend with you. That wouldn't be very nice. I mean, if they want a hug or something, that's fine, but probably nothing more than that, because that would just be weird, I guess.
How do you think Korean people do their relationships?
I'm not sure, but I feel like they would make a bigger problem out of that. We have a lot of Middle Eastern students at the school where I study, and I know that they would have a big problem with that probably.
Where are you from?
New York.
And how long have you been in Korea for so far?
11 months.
11 months, all right. Is it okay for your partner to have friends of the opposite sex?
Absolutely. Depending on if there was ever any history with them, then I would say no. But I have friends of the opposite sex, so I expect my significant other to feel the same way.
I see.
So if we weren't on the same page from the beginning, I don't think we would be dating, because I think it's jealousy. Jealousy if you don't trust me. So I think it's a big trust thing. If they want to go hang out, if they want to go have dinner, if they have a long history of being friends only, then I don't have an issue with it. Maybe staying the night at her house, that's a no. We're going to go with a no. I'll come pick you up if you need me to come pick you up. You don't need to stay the night.
I'll get you.
Exactly.
In regard to this topic, you know, how do you think Koreans date?
I haven't seen many people with the opposite sex here, like friendships. So I think maybe here in Korea that they think that you're not supposed to have friends of the opposite sex. I mean, I still think that Korean culture still has its old school ideas. Like whenever I don't have my tattoos covered or anything like that, I do get, you know, more stares, more looks, depending on what I'm wearing. Exactly. So I think just it's more old school here. Maybe that's more of a new age idea to have friends of the opposite sex. But there's so many differences that it's not a surprise.
Of course. Thank you for coming out today.
No problem.
Where are you from?
Switzerland.
Switzerland. Oh, and how long have you been in Korea so far?
2 months.
2 months so far. All right. So as a person from Switzerland, I'm not sure how like dating culture is there, but Can your partner have friends of the opposite sex? Yes or no?
Yes. People can be attracted to each other, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna actually act on that.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you can find someone pretty and not do anything more.
Also, attraction is different from liking someone.
Exactly.
Okay,
very different.
Yeah. What can your partner not do with the opposite sex?
Physical touch.
Physical touching. Okay. All right.
So if it's more than like a hug, then I would. Yeah. I believe that I'm not gonna date someone who would do that.
Okay.
So. I don't have to worry about these things. You can know pretty early on in the relationship if that person is this sort of person or not.
So do you think there's like any cultural differences in regard to this? Like how do you think Koreans do their dating culture?
So don't go out alone with a boy or a girl, stuff like that.
Right.
I've heard the don't go drinking.
Don't go drinking
alone with like a guy friend or a girlfriend.
Stuff like that from your Korean friends, I assume.
I know. I read this.
Oh, you read this?
Yeah, or I saw videos about it. That's why I'm saying like I cannot speak for them.
Do you think they're more strict here a bit?
Not strict, I just think it's very different. And I mean, I know that maybe if I had grown up here, I would probably think very differently about this subject. So.
Of course, yeah. Alrighty, thank you so much. So where are you from?
Spain.
And how long have you been here in Korea?
This is my 6th week.
6th week, okay, I see. When you're dating someone, is it okay for them to have female friends? What do you think about that?
Yeah, why not? I don't think that should be like an impediment of anything.
Really? Have you dated a boyfriend with a lot of female friends before?
No, but like I wouldn't mind. That wouldn't be any of the reasons for an argument.
What do you think that they should never do with their female friend?
Of course, getting way too intimate, sort of flirting. I don't know, like asking when the other person is alone at home.
How about getting a drink?
No, you can go have a drink.
Get a drink?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a drink.
It's alcohol, man.
Yeah, but like I have like full trust on my partner, and I trust that he knows when to stop and like. Let's not blame the alcohol for what he does, you know?
I see, yeah, of course, yeah. What do you think are some cultural differences between Korea and, in Spain and
like dating?
Yeah, dating like, yeah.
The girls usually get so jealous. Like, I think I was like walking down the street and there was like a couple coming towards me, and then like, I was like looking straight, so I crossed like side with the guy, and then like the girl pulled him to his side, I was like, and I was just like walking and like,
look at my man.
Yeah. She like took to her side and like started like protecting him, and then like okay. They tend to be a little bit possessive.
Yeah, obsessive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you like your time here in Korea so far?
Yes, it's amazing. Like the food is great, and the people is nice.
Very nice. Yeah. Thank you for coming out. I'll give you a thumbs up. And where are you from again?
I'm from France.
And how long have you been in Korea so far?
It's been 3 months and a half.
When you're dating someone, is it okay for them to have male friends?
For me, I mean, yes, for sure, as long as they are not too close.
Not too close?
Yeah, like if, for example, they talk every time, even more than me, I will get upset.
You get upset?
Yeah, and be mad.
What do you consider too close?
Speaking every 10 minutes, like always,
I see.
Even when I'm with her, like she picks up her phone and speaks to her friend or something like this. Yeah, maybe because I'm jealous, but I just don't like it. They can take a drink together if it's been a long time or after work, whatever, or to celebrate something. There is no problem. But like if, for example, my girlfriend wants to sleep with her best friend and he's a male, I would be upset for sure.
So never sleeping in the same house?
No, never.
But you're okay with them getting a drink or like a beer afterward?
Yeah, sure.
So where are you from?
United States of America.
And how long have you been in Korea so far? 2 months. If you're dating someone, can your partner have friends of the opposite sex?
Yes, I think so, yeah. Relationships are all about trust. If you don't trust your partner to have friends of the opposite sex, then what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point in a relationship?
Yeah.
What can your partner not do with the opposite sex?
Physical affection, messaging in like a romantic way, obviously, but like liking pictures, any of that stuff, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter.
Can your partner have like a drink with the opposite sex?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you would be tempted to say like not alone.
Not alone.
But like I said, it's about trust. If something does happen, then obviously that wasn't meant to be anyways.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any cultural differences between how Korean people think about that and how, you know, Americans or other foreigners think about this?
I think there's a bit of a different dating culture here. Obviously, you're supposed to be into each other, but I feel like they're very into each other, like doing everything together, always together. At least that's what I've seen.
Okay.
So
All right. I see.
maybe they'd be less tolerant, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, of course, of course. You like your time here in Korea so far?
Yeah, I love it. Honestly, I would live here.
Live here?
Yeah.
Thank you, and give me a thumbs up, and then we'll get you in. What do you guys think are the disadvantages of dating a person who has a lot of friends of the opposite sex? Any pros and cons?
Well, I have a lot of guy friends, so I know when we all hang out like in a group, my guy friend will like say something and all of us will be like, "You're an idiot, why'd you do that?" You know? So we can be, or they'll be like, "Oh, what should I get my girlfriend for whatever?" And we can all like really help them out. But then also if like the person themselves is coming from an area of like kind of insecurity, or they have like past trauma, or maybe like, you know, the partner has done something in the past, then it can like kind of be a problem then, because it can also fester insecurities, especially if you're surrounded by that and you have that sort of environment.
It's okay to have friends. The only thing I say is like, you might within time give them a lot of trust. You know, you've learned to trust them, and like if anyone ever betrays that trust because they know, oh, you know, I've got a lot of friends, they will never know anything, I think that would be very heartbreaking. But in most cases, I think it's a very positive thing to just look at. Like, you know, you can't go your whole life just being stuck, like, you know, having no friends and like restricting your friends to a gender.
I've met a Korean bisexual before, and she's dating like a girl right now. But like, whether it's a man or a woman, she always has to ask permission from her girlfriend. Yeah.
How long could you do that for?
Exactly.
Like if I was like 10 years into the relationship, would you have to keep doing that?
Thank you guys for coming out and sharing your perspective and thoughts. And yeah, give a thumbs up. Wrap it up here. Thank you.
For me, I mean, if I have a girlfriend, she will be my best friend as a female. For me, my girlfriend doesn't need a best boyfriend. But if they knew each other for a long time before I was here, like for 10 years, etc.
10 years or something. That's fine.
I would be okay.
They have a long friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for sharing your opinions and thoughts. Yeah, give us a thumbs up, and then we'll get you on your way. Yeah.
Usually, if you have a lot of friends of the opposite sex, it's probably because you have something in common with them. But maybe if that leads to an issue, then maybe you aren't fit to be together in the first place. I don't think it would be a problem.
So yeah, we'll wrap it up. Give me a thumbs up, and like.